All right. Good morning, everybody. Just turn your camera to the usual off. Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yigal, if you're call me if you.
The only loyal guy. That's what you
usually Sunday mornings. I'm dropping for 5 minutes. Yeah. All right. So we had a Gemara where today's Daf Ayin Vav and Ayin. I guess Ayin Zion. I don't know. Yeah, Ayin Zion is today. So there's Ayin Vav. So we left off by Kusi Shinami or Kusi. So what's the reason? So he said by Kusim has a suffix mamzeris within there. So there was 3 shitas. So he actually went through 2 of them. The first one was because their conversion, they were scared of lions and it wasn't real conversion. Therefore, they're really a din of Avik who's Baal Bas Yisrael, and according to the sheet that holds that creates mamzeris. The second one is no. They were legit Gerim. So what's the problem? So the problem was they misinterpreted the pasuk by Yibum Mechalitza, right? They thought that Yibum Mechalitza is only required by a woman who's an Arusa, but as if a woman was fully married, there is no Yibum Mechalitza required because she's called a woman who's Chutza, right? Outside woman, right? Not someone who already married with him. And then we got to the Yeshemrim, and the Yeshemrim, 6 lines from the top, and Ayin Vav and Aleph. And the way we go, the Yeshemrim is the third shita as to why the Kusim married Kusim. Because the Yeshem Lafish ain't Bekin Bedutei Mitzvahs, because they're not so medakti mitzvahs. Saman Yeshem, who is this third opinion? Ayin Vav. Okay. So Rabbi Baravin, Rabbi Eliezer, he's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. The time of the Brayis Matzas Kusi Muteris v'Adam Yaitzi v'Yedei Chobas of Pesach. That a person, if he has availability to use matzah of the kusim, he could use it he could eat it on Pesach as achametz. Not only that, he could even fulfill the mitzvah of matzah. However, Rabbi Eliezer says, no, do not use their matzahs. They're not so good with mitzvahs. They're not so makban to do their mitzvahs. Anything that they do, right? They do better than Israel. It almost reminds me of like non-religious Svardim, right? A lot of them, whatever that they do, right? They're very good at those things that they do even more than some of us Ashkenazic Jews. But anyways, the Ella. So now the Kusim were they're even better at mitzvahs. Ella Hachi. So what does it mean? So Ma'ayin Bekin. Lefisha Bekin B'Toras Kedushin v'Gerushin means they were not so careful in the Kedushin and Gerushin, and therefore maybe they thought a woman was divorced, but she still remained with the first husband, and she remarries by the Kusim allowed to remarry. So therefore, there creates mamzeros. And Amarav Nachman Baravu mamzer me'achaisa u'mamzer me'eshes ach nisarvu behet. Right, there was mamzeros from one who had a child with his own sister, and also one who had a child with their brother's wife, were mixed amongst the Kusim. So my kamashman, what do you come from? Teach us the yesh mamzer mechavi krisis. That the cases are chavi kares. We saw that there's machlokes in terms of what creates a mamzer. Is it the Steve Bezdin? Is it the kares? Is it even a lav? Right. So you can't understand. So teach us one case. Teach us achayso or eishesach. Nisnichado. So the one says no. Ma'aser shaya kachaya. No, it was a ma'aser shaya, and that's what it was. The ma'aser. They're just reporting that there was a mamzer mechaisa and also mamzer meishesach. And similarly, Rabbi Amar, Eved the Shivcha Mizarvan, there was Eved and the Shivcha mixed amongst the Kusim. So the Gemara says, Mishumai. So what's the issue by an Eved or Shivcha? Mishum Shivcha, right? We don't care who the father is, right? The child will go after the mother, right? Really, the issue would be the mother is a Shivcha, so therefore the child born to a Shivcha, the child is not Jewish. So Nis Nichada. So just say one. Why do you have to say Eved Vishivcha? So my answer is no. Ma'aser shaya kachaya. No, that was the Ma'aser shaya, and therefore we'll leave it. That's why I've reported. Fine. Nayin Mishnah. So Mishnah says gets a little complicated here. So those of you who know my family, it'll be a little easier to follow. But I'll throw it in. Hanoi say Isha Kohanes, one who wants to go ahead and marry a Bas Kohen. So you got to go ahead and look into the matter, make sure there is good lineage. So Arba Yimahis, really what you have to do is you have to check into 4 mothers into the family. Sheheim Shmona, right? This is 8, right? This is people talk about the Shidducha nowadays looking into the Shidduch, so they actually had to do more more looking into in those days. What is that? So let's just say, for example, my daughter, right? So we're talking about my daughter. She, I'm a Kohen, right? So he said you have to go ahead and look into. So who are the people that they look into? So Ima, right, would be her mother, i.e., my wife, Yehudi, right? The Amima, right, and her mother. All right. So each one. So FYI, so each one. So there's basically 4 mothers that are listed here, and their mothers, right? So the first one would be the mother of the girl, which let's say in this case, we're talking about my daughter Michali, right? Looking for a shit up, just putting it out there, right? So, right, so Yehudit, right, and her mother, right, right. So, Ima, Ve'emima.
You need to Rivka.
Yeah, right. Then it says Ve'em Avi Ima, the Ima, right? Then the mother of her mother's father, which would be Shmuel Brahman's mother, Esther Brahman.
Right.
So they have to look into her and her mother, right? Chai Esther and her mother.
Right.
Now the aim of Viha, the mother of her father, which would be my mother, right? Mrs. Goldberg, right? The Ima and her mother, which would be,
so we're already
Tani Chaitovsky.
We're already 6.
Right, that's 6. The aim Avi Aviha V'ima, and the mother of the father's father's, the mother of the father's father, and the mother. So in other words, my father's mother, Bobby Min, right, and her mother. Those are the ones. So a lot of fathers and mothers here. So that was how to follow this case. So in this, right. So this one you do it, and we'll see there's even more. And Levi Yisraelis, and if it's a Levi or Yisrael, that's just by a Kohen, right, who's considered to have better lineage. But Levi Yisraelis might be Eidecha. So it's not only, let's say the case, let's say the first one was my wife. So it'd be not only her and her mother, which would be Mrs. Brahman, it would be her mother, Mrs. Brahman, and her mother, Mrs. Lazar. It would be even one generation ahead of that. Okay? So Eidecha, this is our Levi or Yisrael.
That add up to be 16?
So that would be 12 because there's only one generation. Right. We're still going to see about 16, right? Because each one is 4. Right?
They should have 4 today.
So ein baikin loy means back ulamala. Right? You guys already know the Gemara is coming up. Very good. Right? So ein baikin is loy means back. However, if somebody, right, the Bas Kohen, whatever it is, we know her father is worked in the mikdash, so there's no need to go ahead and check before him because we know that he's already been vetted, right? He's already checked. And also, let's say a Levi was in a Duchen ulamala, v'loy Sanhedrin, or if he served in the Sanhedrin ulamala, or maybe it's one of the fathers served for the officers, one of the community positions, the Gabbai Tzedakah, Masin Lakuna. All these cases, those cases, you can go ahead and marry into the Kuna. There is no chashash into this lineage. They leave the friend, you don't have to go ahead and check after them. Rabbi Yossi Amir, even somebody who signed in the courts of Tzipori, the Archei Yishana over there, the older courts over there, that so too they wouldn't let someone sign as an aid unless they really inspected. And Rabbi Chanina ben Tiknas Amir, Af Mishahaya Muchtav Aristaya Shel Melech. Even somebody who was basically was part of David Melech's army, such a person also they would look into yichus for such a person. Fine.
Not worried about the Hassan's lineage.
I'm sorry.
Not worried about Hassan's lineage.
So let's see the Gemara. Zok the Gemara. Ma'ishna b'nashi batkino, ma'ishna b'gavri loy batkino. Why is this by the woman who check? Right? I didn't want to, the Gemara asked us a similar question. And why not the guy? So Lord Baki. So Nashi Nechi means when women fight, how do they insult each other? Baraisu Deminsu, right? They go ahead and they say, oh yeah, well, you committed adultery, you were with this man, you were this man. The Misa, and if it was Deaconmills, if there was something wrong with the lineage, there is no rumors around because they don't expose one another. So therefore you have to go ahead and look into the women. However, Gavri, the man, he means Vadadi, Hadadi, Dadi, when they go ahead and argue with one another. But Yuktan who the means, right? They all go ahead and say, oh, yeah, well, your grandfather was a mamzer, and he Misa. Or that, right? Yeah, if he was talking true, then the Ika Milsa, Isla Kala, then it would be exposed. There would be a call that there is rumor that this person isn't because he got into a fight. So why doesn't she go ahead and check with him? So Masai le Rav was Rav the Rav the Amar Avidim Rav lo huchzu kasheres nase the psul, right? So lo huzru, right? So yeah. So that was the in other words those ksheros, right, and those who let's say the Bas Kohen were not commanded to go ahead from marrying psulim, right? It was not the Bas Kohen from man not to marry psulim. Rather, it was a Kohen was commanded not to marry psulos. So therefore, it's not on the woman, as we saw the sheet before, and therefore there is no requirement necessarily for them to go ahead and make sure that he's, there's not a chalal or something like that.
It's not just a phone check, astrology check the ways.
For mamzeros, right? But in terms of checking a male being a mamzer, that we would have heard the rumor. And in terms of the kahuna, it's only the male kohanim are commanded, not the female kohanim. Right? 3 lines from the matter of Adabah, Tani Arba Yimahos, Shehem Shtemasri. So they used 4, which was 12. And Masisa, the price it says Daladi Mahos, Shehem Sheshisri, that's 16. So the Bishlam, Rav Adabarava, Muklim Law, also Alan pointed out. Or at first he was incorrect. He did the second price, and then he was correcting himself. Mukima Belevi Ubas Yisrael. He said, over here is 12. And we pointed out before, they added an additional 4 by Levi Yisrael. So 8 plus 4 is 12. Elabas Nisa, but in the Nisa name it pligi. Let's say it argues with our mission. The other price that says it was 16. So this isn't low. So what does it mean? One more. Zug achas means even another, generation. Notice we said before, right? You check into, let's get my wife. My wife, Mrs. Brand, Mrs. Lazar would be Mrs. Lazar's mother, which was
in Europe.
Yeah, I'll get the name in a minute. All right, let me. Fine. All right, I'll get it later. Fine. So Zugachas added one more, which would be 16. So Amar Rav Yudah Rav Zayt Divrei Rav Meir. This is the opinion of Rav Meir. In other words, you have to go ahead and look into it. Now, everyone's chesed kashrus unless you know otherwise. So therefore, you don't need to go ahead and look back to look for mamzeros. You can assume there's no mamzeros. Okay, kasher say no mamzeros.
The Mishnah has been out by the no say means that halacha about it. But then it's got over here.
Yeah.
So you have to check over people. Over here, and it's like you don't have to. There's also
so let's see. So the says Aini. When there's a claim. Now, when there's a claim, now what's our Mishnah going on? Is our Mishnah going? You have to go ahead and back and check. When there's a claim of, hey, there's mamzeros, and only then you have to look at. Or, like we just said, no, you don't have to. Right? So, our Mishnah is Rav Meir, who says only that's what you have to do. So, in other words, according to this, that one holds even Chachamim say you don't have to do it, and the other one says no. This is even called Chachamim just when there is a claim that is done. And he could have some slightly different version of Rav Yudah Marab. Rav Meir is the opinion of Rav Meir. Kol mishpachas b'chesed kashrus hein amdas. They're all chesed kashrus. And Amarav Chava Bar Guya now Amarav in Koyalav Irun certainly don't have Rabba. However, if there is a claim of mamzerus or there's some issue with yichus, then you have to be b'yidei gacharad. Once there's a error, right? I assume it's 2 people. All right, we said ein error pacham t'shnaim, like last week or whatever it is. So then you have to go ahead and check into the matter. So ein baikim means bechol. You don't go ahead and check into his bech or above. So my time was 3 since ila the bat kuha. Like having masculate, right? Because if he wasn't, they didn't check it. He wouldn't have been allowed to go ahead and work in the mikdash. Because over there, that was those who were biyaches for the kuna of Leviah. They were working there. Not from the Sanhedrin and above. My time, but what's the reason? Based in Menukim Mitzedek, just like those who are in Sanhedrin. Are in other words that they're righteous in terms of their actions. So too they are clean from any blemish. And Amar Remar Mike Pro, what's the pasuk says? Look at the nakudas here, right? Kulach Yafa Rayasi Umum Ein Bach. So it says over there that basically they will be good and there won't be any blemish. So maybe it means a physical blemish. Oops, talking about yichus there. Right? Maybe it's talking about a physical blemish. Then they can't. So it's a hedron. So Amar Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. Amar the pasuk says v'yitzatzu sham imach. So it says over there that by the shiva zakenim it will be with Moshe Rabbeinu. So with you. So it says with you. Now they'll be similar to you in terms of good lineage. Maybe over there they needed to be good. Right, because they were dealing with the Shechina, right? That was with Moshe Rabbeinu, and not just Sanhedrin later on. Some Rav Nachman, the pasuk says, "Hakel me'alech v'nasu itcha." So it says no, when they're making the court system, it says they will basically go ahead and they will be responsible, to carry the load with you, and with you meaning similar to you, i.e., we're talking about generations afterwards of judges, and therefore those will have to be miyaches. And called Misha Huchsu Avaisa Mishoitre Harab. And so also those people who worked for the public. So the Mema the Loy Makvina Psulim. Are you saying or cases over there, Shoitre Harab, let's say even money cases, right? People who are, let's say the people's court or whatever, court, civil courts, regular courts. We don't use psulim over there. Everybody's kosher to rule dini mamanos, but they're not, and not everyone is fit to dini nefashos. The Avina they ask over there, hakol. Who does it hakol kshein ladu dini mamanos? Hakol asuyema. Who does that come to include? That's an inclusive word. Then Rav Yehuda lasuye mamzer, to go ahead and include a mamzer. Knows a mamzer could even go ahead and judge a money case. So Abai says Yerushalayim. No, in Yerushalayim they actually have like a higher level of their monetary cases in Yerushalayim not to use mamzer. So therefore, if someone was a judge in Yerushalayim of money cases, you could assume they have good lineage. Those who worked by the Beit Levi in Yerushalayim. The Gabbai Tzedakah, Masiyim also Gabbai Tzedakah. So my time, what's the reason? Keva the Minsu, the Hadi Inshi, right? Since was it? Yeah, the Gabbai Tzedakah. Since they would sometimes, get into little fights with people, right? In other words, the Gabbai Tzedakah would have to go around to make sure to collect. People, weren't, didn't have as much money. Maybe they couldn't afford it, and therefore they weren't so forthcoming. So someone pledged money and they needed the money. Since I can't give, so he said, "Okay, I'll take your chair until you go ahead and give me." So you can even do it Erev Shabbos. So there was some fights with the Gabbai Tzedakah, and therefore if the Gabbai Tzedakah Taka had some sort of mamzeres in his family, then he's like Pelo, right? Then it would have been known that there would have been insults flying. But since it wasn't known, therefore someone's a Gabbai Tzedakah. Therefore, and there's no rumors. Therefore, you can assume that his lineage is good.
So that's the first place they go.
Right.
Everybody's ticked off someone. You're a mamzer.
Right. Well, I guess that's what we said. That's how men. That's what they fight. Right. I guess that's maybe that's why the mamzer became such a insult. Because that was it's used in such a manner, but it was originally used as your lineage, right? Your mamzeros. Now it's used as something else. Fine. All right, so back in all the page of Ayin Vav and Beis. So, the Rav Ada Barava Guria Havi. So the host of Rav Ada Barava, I guess the guy that ran like some sort of a bed and breakfast, and he would host Rav Ada Barava, and he was from his family was from Gerus. Gerim. Vavi called Menatzihu Rav Bibi. And him and Rav Bibi were sort of arguing as to who should be in charge of run the Aguda, who should be in charge of the communal service there. Samara Amavdino, Sarusa Damasa. I should run the communal fund, on behalf of the city. No, Avdina Sarusa Damasa. I'm going to go ahead and I'll work, I'll work on behalf of the tzibur. I'll be the treasurer. So also the commander of Yesi came forward to Rav Yesi to decide who this host or Rav Bibi. So Amar Lahuz, he said Tanina says it says over there, place upon yourself a king from amongst your brothers. So kol any masivas, any people that you go ahead and place upon yourselves to rule you should be from among your brothers. So, i.e., excluding the ger. Sorry, Mr. Host of you run the bed and breakfast. You're out. It's going to be Rav Bibi. So, Amalei Rav Ada Barava. So, Rav Ada Barava, who is using the services of his host at his bed and breakfast, he says, "I feel imam Yisrael." And that was his father. There was gerus by his father's side, but his mother was legit Yisrael, going all the way back. So Rav Yesi answered to Rav Ada Barava, "Imam Yisrael meker v'chisha thrinabe." No. Imo from Yisrael, that's considered meker v'chisha, and therefore, basically, he was also fit Hilkach, therefore they made a pshara. Rabibi, the Gava Rabba, who la'ayin b'mili the Shemaya, he was more in charge of the religious matters. Umar and this other host, la'ayin b'mili the Masid. He was more in charge of, I guess, the financial matters of the city. Sorry? No, he wasn't. His family had Garrus in his family for previous generations.
He was the gear.
Right. He was Garrus in his family. So Amar Abaye says, Hilkach, by the way, man, someone's going to go ahead and host people in his inn, in his bed and breakfast, in his motel. Right? You should host people like the level of Rabba Rabba who know how to argue on to their benefit and to find their schus. And Rabbi Zeir would go ahead and appoint people with Gerus to be in charge of communal matters. And Rabbi Ravu Matababu, he would allow them to use it. However, Marav and Ersel, Afilu Reish Kuri Mukmi, even the Reish Kuri, which was people who were in charge of the measures, they wouldn't, if they were a Gerim, they would not be allowed to be in charge of that. And Benahardia, Afilu Reish Makmi Minayu. Even I guess the water reclamation department head, whatever it is, right? Whatever they run now in the city, right? So even the irrigation, whatever it was, they wouldn't allow for a ger to be in charge of. Fine. Even someone who was a witness, my time because first they would go ahead and check into the lineage of these the courts of Tzipori, and then they would go ahead and sign. Rabbi Chanina ben Tignos says, I think it was even the soldiers.
Are there a lot of gerim, or was it just like something that was like they say David?
I think it had to be. Well, I think by those times,
it's so unusual that there'd be a ger that they're going, sorry.
I think it's time the Mikdash there were a lot, right?
No.
There were a lot of David.
Yeah, huh?
There were a lot of givers.
By actual sufi by
They don't want to go there. They don't want to. They had to keep them out.
Where by?
Because they were all going. They don't want to go there.
Right, but I guess there was a lot of people trying to convert in those days. Yeah,
because they were.
My guess is way more than now.
Well, that's because
yeah.
Loved by everybody.
Yeah. Just go online. Yeah. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So we said even that the army. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. B'chayla shel Beis David. We're talking about who was miaches, the soldiers of the Beis David. And Amar Rav Yesi Ma'ikra, what's the pasuk? So it says V'siyashu b'tzava b'milchama.
Yisyachasam.
So of Yisyachsam, right? The yichus, right? It comes there. Those soldiers were miaches. But time am I, and what was the reason? Some Rav Yehuda Amarav Kadesh Zechusan Zechus Avaisam Nisayasam. In order that there's Zechus and Zechus Avais, right? The descendants of the Avais will help them, lead them to victory. Vayika Tzelek Hamoini. So Tzelek Hamoni, who was a soldier in David's army.
These are David's men here.
Right. So my law of the Asi Ammon, was he not from Ammon? He's a convert from Ammon. Lo, the Asi Ammon, no, it means he lived in Ammon. That's why he was called that. Vayika Uriah Achiti. So my law of the Asi, right? In other words, he converted there. Lo, the Asi he lived over there. Vayika Iti Agiti. And if you're going to tell me, giving the same answer to Yosef Begas, Amar Rav Nachman, right? He was Mavato Avodos Kachavim, right? So you can only be Mavato Avodos Kachavim if you only Avodos Kachavim, if you're a guy. So it must have been that he was a guy, right? And nevertheless, he was in the army. We had a further on maybe Rav. Arba Miyas Yilad Mayu David, right? The David Melech had 400 children. How you know David Kulam Bnei Yefas Toyar? How you and they're from Yefas Toyar? Right, for a non-Jewish mother, the Kula Mistaprim Kume Magdalim Beludra. So you right, they all had the two-step haircuts with the locks coming out in the back. The Kulam Yeshim Zav, and they would sit in the chariots of gold. Vahayu Mahalkim Bereishi guys, and they go ahead of the army. Vein Bali Agruvim, and they were, I guess, they were intimidating. Right, they were intimidating people, right? Because Shabbat David. So my answer is no. They didn't actually engage in war. They were there to intimidate, but those who were fighting in war were actually were those who were Jewish. Fine. Naya Mishnah. Today's daf. All right. Mishnah says Bas Chalal. Turn the page. Yeah. So Bas Chalal Zochar Psulam Inakuna Liyeh. So it says over there, right? A Bas Chalal Zochar. Right. All right. So a bas cholol zachar. Oh, you're good. You're good. So a bas cholol zachar is psulim nekuna. In other words, if the father, right, was a kohen, so a cholol is, let's go back for a second. A cholol is basically a kohen who married somebody who was not supposed to, right? There's a certain a divorcee or a zona. So the child then from this union, because the Ister, even though he's a kohen, but he's now a cholol. Cholol is the guy is that. I can just turn it off. No one's on. It's fine. We can just turn it off if you want.
That's good.
Back to me now. Right. So the child is a cholol. And forget the calling itself now. So now we're saying the son, right, or the child. So the bas cholol, the daughter of a cholol zachar, right? The father is a cholol. So the daughter is psul menakuna. She is a chalola, and as she can. So a kohen is also commanded not to marry a chalola. Okay.
She can eat the kuna. She can.
She truma. No, I think it's puzzle. I think it's puzzle from truma. Yeah, I think it's puzzle. Right. Anyway, so the point is, Cohen should not marry her, right? So she's a bas cholol zachar psul menakuna. Now, not and what does it I mean forever? In other words, the father, he was the one who created, right, the cholol. And then he had a son who was a cholol, and he had a son who was a cholol. The father Cohen, right, had married a divorcee in the 1800s. Or I guess there's no English now, but whatever it is, many generations ago. So his son is a cholol. He married a regular Jewish woman, right? Fine. The cholol married a son, a cholol. Keep going, cholol all the way down. So liyalam, the father is a cholol, so his son Cohen is a cholol. So that's what it means liyalam.
But the daughter.
Bas, the daughter of a cholol, forever is always a is pasal lakuna. She's a cholol. Now Yisrael shenasa cholala. Let's say a Yisrael married a cholala. So let's say her father, right, married a divorcee. Now she was a cholala, and she didn't marry a kohen. She married a regular Yisrael. Bito, right? It's Kshera lakuna, right? It's Yisrael, and therefore Kshera lakuna. And cholol shenasa bas Yisrael, so a cholol who married a bas Yisrael, bito psula lakuna. So a cholol, who right, we saw this similar to what we said earlier, who married a bas Yisrael, so the daughter is psula lakuna. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer bas ger zachar kabas cholol zachar. So he says no. Also, by the way, the daughter of a ger is just like the daughter of a cholol, and therefore it's psula lakuna. So you can't marry a ger's daughter. Pasal lakuna. No. Yisrael shena. So the ger, so geres. So Yisrael that married is a geres. Bito kshera. The daughter is kshera. Lakuna. The ger, and if he is the ger shena, so Basel bito kshera lakuna. Also, the daughter is kshera lakuna. About, in other words, if there's one, the father or the mother is a ger, then the child is still kosher lakuna, according to Rabbi Yezban Yaakov. However, about ger shena geres. But if the father were converted and the mother converted, and then they got converted, then they married, and they had a daughter, beat up psulakuna, then the daughter is psulakuna. And echad ger echad echad whether it's a ger echad b'shkarim, afilu ad asaradoros, even 10 generations, ashita imam Yisrael, until if it keeps me a convert from a convert, that's still considered to be the gerim, even 10 generations until the mother is from Yisrael. Rabbi Yisrael. Even a ger that married a geres, the daughter is ksher lakuna. He argues with what we said earlier that a ger meets a ger, the daughter is pas lakuna. He says ksher lakuna. Fine.
Wow.
So that was the mission. Zok the Gemara. So my li'olam. What does it mean li'olam? So my what would you have said? We said bas cholol, right? Is psul mikra li'olam. So what would you say? Maybe you have a mitzvah, maybe it's like a mitzvah adami. Malo halon la'achar shleish daros. Over there, well, the third generation is okay. Afkan nami la'achar shleish daros. So it's over here. Maybe a cholol is only 2 or 3 generations, and then it goes good. Kamash malon, that it goes forever until basically one of them goes ahead and marries a Yisrael, and not continues the cholol to marry right to get married. And Yisrael shenas a cholol, but if Yisrael marries a cholola, if the mother's a cholola. So he said, we said that. Now, so it says over here, do not right? It says you should not become tamei. Just like over there, by Tuma, only a male is commanded not to become Tamid, right? The Kohanim don't go to the cemetery, it's only the male Kohanim, not the female Kohanim. So just like over there, is only males lo nekevas. Afkan, so too over here, right? By the Chalola, right? So to Afkan, so too it's only the Chalol that makes a psula kuna, but not the Chalola. Afkan Elamiyat, if that's the case, Bito Shakoin Gadol, Tishtri, right? If that's the case, right? So the daughter, right, from the, let's say, the Kohen Gadol, which is in this case of Leichal Zarabiyama, right? So should be mutter. Now, if you're only darshing, that's males, not females. So it says Leichal, right? Leichal Zaro. So maybe Zaro should only refer to male children and not female children, right? Elamiyat, the Bito Shakoin Gadol Tishtri. So it says Miksiv Beno. It doesn't say Beno. It says Zaro, right? His descendants Ksiv. Loichal Zaro Biyom. It says, oh, you should not go ahead and profane your Zaro. In other words, any child from this forbidden union is Yachel Zaro. So Bas Beno Tishri, if that's the case, right? So we said, right, your son and your son and your son, even all the way down, anybody who follows that, still the daughter is no good. So, but according to this, maybe Bas Beno Tishri, maybe the daughter of your son, who's a chalal, maybe the granddaughter should be okay. So ksiv lo yichal zaro. So we say, right, because it says over there lo yichal zaro. So makish zaro lo ma hu bito psula. But no, bito psula says no. It says lo yichal zaro. Just like his own child is no good, so to his son afbino bito psula. So to his son's child is also, his son's daughter is also no good. So bas bito titasir. If that's the case, then his daughter should also be be no good. And I was why just his son's child is yachel? Maybe even his daughter's child is yachel. So the Gemara says imke gzer shava ma'yani. If that's the case, the gzer shava of male and not female, what does that help us? It's telling us that only that the male, right, the male's children are chalalim, but your female's children will not be halal. And chalal, so to that, so chalal shenasa bas Yisrael bito psula. So a chalal who married a bas Yisrael, right? So he was a chalal and he married a bas Yisrael. So the bito is psula according to his opinion. So Tanle Reisha, the Reisha taught that we already said that bas chalal zachar psula minakuna. We already said that, right? Why do you have to repeat it? So I did Tanle Reisha Yisrael shenasa chalala. Since we want to go ahead and say Yisrael shenasa chalala, then we say so that we wrote chalal shenasa bas Yisrael. And therefore, we also wrote that as psula, and it wasn't necessarily to to learn something else out. It was this, the identical halacha that the Mishnah started off with. And Masnisen deloy karabi dustai. Our Mishnah is not like every dustai. Ben Yehuda. The time you're going to write Rabbi Ben Yehuda Imer Kashem Sheb Bnei Yisrael Mikvah Tahir LeChalalos. Just like Bnei Yisrael is a Mikvah Tahir LeChalalos, Kach Bnei Yisrael Mikvah Tahir LeChalal. So too, just like over there, the mikveh Yisrael is good for halal. So too, mikveh Yisrael is good for halal. Right? If halal marries them, then everything is okay. So my time of the so that's not so. This is not like our mission. So my time of the Rabbi Yehuda. So Amar Kalapaz says lo yichal zara bi'amav. Right? It says lo yichal zara bi'amav. Ba'am echad hu demechel b'shnei amim einam yach. So it says over there. It says bi'amav. Right? So bi'amav means only when there's one am, right? When there's one am, then he's miach. But there's two amim, i.e. a Yisrael and a chalal, right? Yisrael and a chalal then would not be chalal. Only when it's one nation is it a chalal, i.e. has to be a chalal and a chalala. But according to Rabbi Dustai Ben Yehuda, if either one of them are Yisrael, and even if it's a chalal or a chalala, then the child would be kosher l'kurban. Tadarabban on the back of the page of Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph. Tadarabban loichal zaro, ein liyel zaro. He atzma minayit. How do we know that she, right? Let's say this woman who now, let's say a grusha, right, married a kohen, so the child is a chalal. So how do we know that she herself is also pasuk kuma, i.e. she does a truma? Minayit, so ma'atakav chaymer. Ma zaro shlo avar aveira mischalel. So the child didn't do any aveira, right? And nevertheless the child is miskalal, is a chalal. So he shavra aveira ain't a dish to miskalelis. It's obvious that she should be miskalelis. So I says, who asked for yichiach? Well, look at him. All right, the father, the Kohen, he went ahead and did an Avera. He married a Grusha, and nevertheless, but he himself does not become a Chalal, right? It's only his child, not him. So why say so? You give the argument to her. So Malu Shachet Ein Mischala B'chol Makom. Now you can't say about him because he can never be Mischala B'chol Makom, right? Once a guy is a Kohen, is kosher Kohen, he can't be Mischala himself, right? Tomar Behi, as well as a woman, she Mischala B'chol Makom, right? So she could be Mischalas, right? If she was Mevaza, right, with someone who is puzzled to her, right, then she is a Chalala, right? Then she has a dinner of a Zona, right? And she's Pasal Kuna, right? So then, therefore, so we see that her status could change. So therefore, in this case, her status will change. And if not, you can say it further. The Pasal says, Lo Yichal Zaro, Lo Yichulo. And or you can even say like this: you can darshan the pasuk lo yichal zara, so lo yichulo zeh sheyakasher v'nischalo, right? In other words, it says learn from it lo yichal zaro. The way it's written, right? I'm going to say because it's written. 1 second. Was the Rashi for a second? I don't have the pasuk. 1 second. Lo yichalo, right? It was so over there. So in other words, it doesn't have the. I think it does not have the vav when it's written. I just lost the. Oh yeah, fine.
So his wife was the one that did Chalal.
Right. So it says lo yichal zaro. So it says lo yichulo, and now lo yichulo means this one that was kosher before that has the ability to be mischalal, as opposed to a man that is not the ability to be mischalal. So Gar says ma'im neshachalei. Why did you have to be another source? Why could you just use the spell we had before? So where it says no v'chitemik lemifrach. Malazar Shekhain also be Avera. Maybe you can argue like this, that maybe there's more of a reason why the child, only the child becomes Mischalel, right, and not the mother, because the child was born, right, Be'isser. The mother, she already had Chesed Kashrus before she became bad. So maybe you can say only the child is a fellow, but not the mother, because the mother didn't start off bad. As opposed to this one, he started off, his Yitzir also was Be'avera. So therefore, you know the source is Lo Yichalo, Lo Yichulo. It says Lo Yichalo, don't be profane. And Lo Yichulo, I mean that Sheyakosher is teaching us that there is somebody who can start off kosher and then become chilul. And who is that? That would be the mother from this union. So Tani Rabbanan Ezi Chalala Kol Shenoda Min Apsulim. What is a Chalala? Anyone that was born Min Apsulim. So what does that mean? My Psulim. Ilay Apsulim Lo. If it's just possible to this person. What about a case of now a person, a regular Yisrael, divorces his wife, right? She goes ahead and marries somebody else, and then that marriage ends, and then he wants to take her back. The halach is he can't be machzer grushaso. So there's a lot, he can't take her back. So let's say, so she's puzzled to him. So let's say he marries her, right? This is a child of Achal, right? So my psulim psulolo hari machzer grushaso the psulolo ubanak shev. Nevertheless, the children are kosher. The pasuk says toeva he toeva vein banet toeva. In other words, the taking her back is toeva, but the children are not toeva. So even a person who's machzor gushaso do not be bad. So my view the achi kamar ezi chalala kol shenoda mina min psul kahuna. Anybody who was born from a psul kahuna, that creates a chal. So nolda in lo nolda lo. So it sounds like only someone, right, who was born, yes, but if they weren't born, then no. So I hare almana grusha zona. The lo no. I understand. Almana grusha zona. These women are not born as an almana grusha zona. In other words, a chalal is born as a chalal, right, a male chalal, right? But an almana grusha zona. The lo no the v'kohavi chalala. It's a chalala. So Rabbi says no haki kamar ezu chalalam muskeres. What's the one that was mentioned? Shaloya la shasa kasher, right? Cloud, right? In other words, we're talking about what's the one that was mentioned. We're talking about one that didn't have a shasa kasher at all. Kol shanola psula kuna. And so, in other words, that means anything that was born with a psul kahuna. So mine was cares. What does it mean that was mentioned in the pasuk? In other words, the Torah says, the pasuk says, "Amanu gusha v'chalola," right? So the pasuk talks about someone who's a chalala. So who is this chalala, right? So that's what we're referring to. This is what the chalala is referring to in the Torah. That's ein tzrik lefarish medivrei. That's what the pasuk the Torah is talking about. Ein tzrik lefarish medivrei seifrim. Kol shenoda lo min psule kuna. Everything that anyone that was born from psule kuna. That is what the pasuk was talking about of a halal. Taner Rabbanan almana. A person is ba upon Kohen Gadol, right, referring to a widow. Right, a widow is a special halacha said by Kohen Gadol. So 3 widows, Eino Chayiv El Achas. It's only Chayiv for one. We have to explain the case. And Grusha. Once again, Eino Chayiv El Achas. Now let's say let's say there was also only Chayiv once. We'll explain. Almana. 3 times. We'll soon see. 3 different almanas, or could be the same person who was widowed 3 times. The Gemara did not explain it. And almana ugrusha v'chalala zona. Now there's a pasuk over here. I just want to read the pasuk on the side. In Vika Chafal it says there, almana ugrusha v'chalala zona as elayika ki besula be'ama v'yikach isha. Right. This is by the Kohen Gadol. It says this, and it says over there, a widow, a divorcee, a chalala, and a zona you should not take. Layikach. So now, if a woman, or in the case, an almana, then a grusha, and a chalala, then a zona, this man Shem can say there when it goes in this order, chayiv. Akol achas v'achas. He's chayiv 4 times.
Gotta take all 4. Would be 5.
Well, if it goes in this order, we'll soon see. Right, we'll soon see maybe what the reason for the order is. And zinza, but let's v'nischala, v'nisgarsha, v'nisarmala in a chayiv elach. But let's say it was the opposite order, right? Started off with the zoyna, right? With the zinza, then in the chalala, v'nisgarsha, v'nisamana in a chayiv elach. Well, we have to. That's the price.
Right.
Now we have an explanation. There's 4 cases we brought. We don't know what's going on. So let's start from the beginning. 3 lines from the bottom. Ayin Zayin Amalav. Almana. Eno Chayv Elachas. Only Chayv what? So Hi Almana Hechida. What does it mean? This Almana, right? Hechidami. Ilema Sheba Almanas Ruvain. Be'Almanas Shimon. Be'Almanas Levi. If we're talking about a guy who's ba Kohen Gadol, about 3 different Almanas, right? The Almana of Ruvain, and then another lady who's Almana of Shimon, and another lady who's Almana of Ruvain. Ma'ina Chayv Elachas. Why is the Chayv only 1 time, right? How do kupa muchlakim? They're different people. Shmichai from them. Hashemas muchlakim. All right, and therefore different averas. Ella sheba alman achas. Rather, maybe it's 1 almana shlesh biyas. Maybe he was bought upon the same almana 3 times. So hechidam, what's the case there? If they didn't give him asra, and then he was bought upon the same lady who was almana 3 times, pshita, it's obvious that you don't be chayv achas. Ella, rather when it's talking about the asube, he warned them between each bia. Why isn't that chai for each and every one? So Ella achas, right? Why isn't it only chai for 1? Well, tonight, as we learned, Nazir if a Nazir was drinking wine the entire day, kulo ain't a chai achas, only chai once. However, I'm lo al tishta v'hu shayisa chai kol achas v'achas. But if they warned him throughout the day, hey, you got to stop drinking, you're Nazir, then he's chai for each every time he was warned, every time he got hasra. So like tzricha rather was part of the brisa sheba al almanas Ruvain shahaisa almanas Shimon shahaisa almanas Levi. She was a lady, right? So you can question how can she get married a 3rd time? Okay, fine. So she was the lady that was married to Ruvain, and then she was widowed. Right? You got to start looking into this. Then she was married to Shimon, and then she was widowed. And then she was married to Levi, and then she was widowed. So she was widowed 3 times, and then she was with the Kohen Gadol. So on that, he's only chayiv once, right? Maybe she's called, it's like 3 different widows: the widow of Reuven, the widow of Shimon, the widow of Levi. So therefore you need 3 different people, and you don't have that. Therefore, it would be chayiv only 1 time, or he would be chayiv only 1 time.
She had 3 previous husbands.
Yes, they all died, and therefore, nevertheless, that's not 3 different Isur of Amana. That's 1 Isur of Amana. Now comes the fun case. What?
She's a black widow.
Black widow, right? So the one actually has a question in other places: how can you get married another time if there's a chazaka? Right.
Right.
I would arrest her until it's like who's that guy? Drew Peterson. Yeah. He like 4. He was widowed 4 times or whatever it was. Yeah. All right. Amana ugrusha b'chalala zayna. So then the next part of the brisa says a woman was widowed, divorced, chalala zayna. So hi Tana, Mike. I understand what he holds. Ik saver iser chala iser. If he holds, you can have iser chala iser. And in other words, we're talking about the same woman who was widowed, divorced. She was a chalala and a zayna. So if chanami. It shouldn't make a difference. The order it's just halal isser, right? There wasn't many difference. weeks over a Isser Chalal Isser, and if there's no Isser Chalal Isser, so Afilo Kaseda having even in this order should also be just one, right? A Isser Chalal Isser, whatever made her usher to this guy first, she got widowed first, or divorced first, or she gave a zona first, or Chalala. So then that would make her Isser. Samarava, no, Haitana, Isser Chal Isser less. Really, there is no Isser Chal Isser. However, Isser Maisif Isle. But if something is a more encompassing Isser, I will soon see what that means, then it could be Chal on another Isser. So Almana, let's say she was first a widow. So Asur the Kohen Gadol, she's only Asur to a Kohen Gadol. The Shar the Kohen Hedyot, but she can marry any other Kohen Hedyot. Havila Grusha, once she becomes, then she get married to somebody else, and she got divorced. All of a sudden, her divorce stage, she's not just usher to the one Kohen Gadol, she's usher to the 50,000 Kohanim. So it's her Maisif. The Kohen Hedyot, Havila Grusha, so Mika the Asif le Isur legabi Kohen Hedyot. Since now there's no additional Isur legabi Kohen Hedyot, Itasif la Isur legabi Kohen Gadol. So too, there's a new Isur that can be Chal upon the Kohen Gadol. The dying shar the michal truma, but still a grusha is able to go ahead and eat truma. The havila chalala, but once she becomes a chalala, so miga didaisif isura lemicha, but truma, since now she has to eat truma, didaisif isura legabe kohen gadol. Therefore, there's no isur of chalala legabe kohen gadol.
So clearly, she can't eat truma.
She clearly. So a chalala can eat truma. Cannot eat truma. Right. Isura, right. The grusha was still able to, but the challah was not. Right, exactly. He said, Kohen Gadol. Maybe that's why he walked out. He knew it was good. So he said, Ella Zona. So ma Isser Maisiv. So what about Isser Zaina? Right. So she's already Asur b'truma. So the Gemara sort of wiggles its way. Some Rav Chana bar Kadina Hoyo v'Shem Znus Hoysel b'Yisrael. Right. In other words, we have a Shem Znus. In other words, let's say a woman, let's say a case of Yisrael, right? She can become a zona by committing adultery. That makes her a zona, right? So it's technically, that term is called a zona. So therefore, you see, there is more than just chalala, right? There's zona, even shaykh Yisrael. So that's called an Isser Moisif, right? Even though it's not Lagabe, the Kohen or the Kohen Gadol, nevertheless, that makes it a larger type of Aveira. And since a large type of Aveira, it can be chal upon the previous Isser. So Tani, fine. So Tani Tana Kamei Rav Sheshes Kolshu b'yikach hareyu b'lo yikach. So anybody who is first allowed to knows when she's able to be taken, right, as if she was a basula, she was able to be taken by the Kohen Gadol. So also b'lo yikach, then she's shayach if she becomes a grusha or chalutz or any of those or whatever a zona chalala. Then that she now becomes this or that. However, but let's say somebody cannot take even she's the basula, like his sister, right? Kohen Gadol cannot take his sister, right? So since she's not shaykh to the isser of you, or it's shaykh for him to marry her, therefore, right? In other words, let's say he's upon his sister. So there is no isser of amana on his sister because the isser of amana or grusha or chalala zona is only on somebody who he would have been able to marry in the first place. But somebody who is not able to go ahead and marry in the first place, i.e. his sister, none of these isurim would be chal.
Wait, which isurim are we talking about?
Grusha, amana, because there's seven pasuk. Pasuk says by Kohen Gadol, amana, grusha, chalala zoyna, as leikach. So it only applies to women that he would have been able to take in the first place. But someone who was never able to take, such as his sister. So therefore, even if his sister was a grusha, he wouldn't be chayiv for taking his sister because she's also a divorcee.
Well, it could be a halal.
What?
It could be a halal.
Could be a mamzer. Yeah, mamzer. Yeah. Right. So Amarle, so he says, who told you this? So Shimon, the Amar Ein Isser Chal Isser. So whose opinion is this? So this is Rabbi Shimon, the Amar Ein Isser Chal Isser. The Tanya of Shimon Aimer, Ha'oichel nevela b'Yom Kippur. When he eats nevela on Yom Kippur, pater, right? He's pater because there's already Isser, right, of eating on Yom Kippur. Di Rabbanan, Ha'amri Isser Chal Isser. So because is the Rabbanan, they say Isser Chal Isser will be two. So the Rav says, wait. I feel that Rabbanan, Ki Ami Rabbanan Isser Chal Isser, Hani Mili Isser Chomer Al Isser Kal. That's only Isser Chomer could be Chal Isser Kal. So a lighter one could be Chal on something which is bigger. About Isser Kal, Isser Chamor, right? Right, Lochal. But everyone would agree, even they would agree that an Isser Kal, such as you can't take a grusha, it's only a lav for the Kohen Gadol. Certainly that wouldn't be chal upon the Isser of Achaiso, which is Isser Kares. So in other words, everyone would agree in this case that Achaiso, that even if she comes an Almana, there is no additional Isser to the Kohen Gadol. And he could have a different version, Hamani, whose opinion is Rabbani. Dami Isser Chal Isser, who say normally Isser Chal Isser. Mechi, Amri Rabbani, when they say Isser Chal Isser, Hani Mili Isser Chamar Al Isser Kal. That's only when Isser Chamar can be Chal, it's only on Isser Kal. About Isser Kal, Isser Chamar, Lo Chal. Everyone would not say that is Chal. Do you Rabbi Shimon? Because this is Rabbi Shimon, Hashta Isser Chamar Al Isser Kal, Lo Chal. He says even an Isser Chamar cannot be Chal and Isser Kal. So Isser Kal, Isser Chamar. I mean, boy, does he have to? Does he have to come teach us that? He says no. Malti Moja said Isser Kahuna Shani. Maybe Isser Kahuna is different. Maybe even though Achaiso is not a din of Kahuna, right? It's just his sister, right? So nevertheless, maybe Isser Kahuna, we would say that now maybe Isser Kahuna is special, that it would be Shayach, no, right? So he says it's a shot. It's a Kamash Bulan. No, we don't say that. So Omer Le Rav Papa Le Abaye. Summer Le Rav Papa Le Abaye. So Rav Papa says to Abaye. So a couple more minutes, 2 more minutes. So only Yisrael Habal Chayso Zayna Mashule, right? So a Yisrael that is Ba Al Chayso. So Zayna Mashule. So Chalala Mashule or Lo Mashule. Does he make her Chalala or just a zone? This is right. Yisrael is Ba Al Chayso. So do we say Kavachay Mechavi Lavin? Do we say Kavachay Mechavi Lavin? So Havi Chalala. So Mechavi Krisis Lo Kol Shekain. Do we say that a Chavi Lav is a Chalala? Certainly Chavi Krisis Lo Kol Shekain. A Dilma. Ein Chalala Elam Isser Kahuna. Maybe a Chalala only come from Isser Kahuna. So Omer Le Ein is a Chalala Elam Isser Kahuna Bilvad. No, it only comes from Isser Kahuna Bilvad. And Amar Rav Amina Milsa. How do you know this? Amar Rav Ein Chalala Elam Isser Kahuna. The Tana Lu Rabbi Lo Yamer Grusha B'Kohen. Right? Don't say Grusha by Kohen Gadol. These are Kavachimer be Kohen Hadiot. Now we know a Kavachimer for Kohen Hadiot. In other words, so Vanamina Hashta le Kohen Hadiot Asur le Kohen Gadol mi boy. So I know, right, that Grusha is already usher to a regular Kohen. So why does that have to repeat it by Kohen Gadol? He says you can't take an Amon or a Grusha. I already know Grusha because if it's usher by Kohen Hadiot, it's certainly usher by him. So Lama Nama, so I say, Shem Shechaluka Gurusha Mizayna V'Chalala B'Kohen Hadiot, just like it's its own Isser, right? When it comes, it's 3 separate Isurim by Kohen Hadiot. So too, it is Kachaluka B'Kohen Gadol. So too, it's separate in Kohen Gadol. It says Pshita Migar Gar. Should it be any worse? So it says Ella. Shem Shechaluka Gurusha Mizayna V'Chalala B'Kohen Hadiot, just like it's different when Gurusha Mizayna V'Chalala and B'Kohen Hadiot. Kachamana. Chaluka, so the Almanis Chaluka is different from the Isser of Grusha Chalala Zoyna B'Kohen Gadol. So the Alman itself is also its own independent Isser. So Chalala Nama Nemra. So I say Chalala. So Ein Chalala Elam Isser Kuna and Zoyna Lama Nemra. So it says Nemra Kan Zoyna Nemra Elam Zoyna. It says over here by Zona. It also says by Kohen Hadiot. Ma Kan Zara Chulin. Just like over there by Kohen Gadol, his offspring are Chol. So to over here Lalad. Zara Chulin. So to over there, by the case of the also in the case of Zona will also become Chalol. All right. So fine. We'll stop here. I guess. Yeah. All right. We'll stop here.
43.
All right. Shkoyach. So tomorrow at the Shem regular time. Everyone have a wonderful day.